So many of us walk away from like a nervy moment, don't we? Building a story about ourselves that we're not cut out for this or we're not good enough, when actually it's just physiology, nothing to do with you, your ability or your character. Welcome to Reclaim Your Voice, the podcast for business owners who are ready to be heard, speak on stages and podcasts, and become genuinely known for what they do. I'm Savannah Madden, competence and speaking coach for founder-led businesses, and I help you find your voice, own your expertise, and speak in a way that attracts the right clients and opens the right doors. Here we talk about finding your voice, building the confidence to share your message, and doing the real work that gets you recognised by the people you're meant to serve. If you've got something important to say and you want the world to actually hear it, you're in the right place. This is Reclaim Your Voice. Hello and welcome back to the show. This week has been a really, really special week for me in one way, and then a bit of a weird week in another. I've had an unwell child. I've had to cancel things. I chose not to go to certain things to preserve my energy for other things. So there's been all sorts of moving parts, but I really want to focus on the most positive bit, not in a sort of toxic positivity way, like, oh, isn't everything so great and rosy and lovely? Because it really hasn't been a week like that. But I also didn't want to come at this episode being like, oh, I gave myself grace and I have a business that works without me and blah, 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 which is all great for everybody who that does work for. There is not one single person or one single business where things are just rosy all the time. And yes, my theatre school does predominantly run without me. My coaching business does need me because I am the only person in it at the moment, besides from a bit of, admin support and tech support. But I'm kind of rambling now, but basically what I'm trying to say is I really want to focus on the good bit of the week and not bore you with the other things that went on. So I'm going to give you a bit of a taster from the first live session of the Voice Collective that I ran this week, which is my brand new group coaching program. And it's the first time that I've ever run this particular program. And as I say, it kicked off this week. And I'm just really proud of the people who are participating. I'm proud of myself, even if that sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but I am. And I think it's really important to be proud of yourself whenever you launch anything new. And I'm obviously not going to give you a whole session because that would be unkind to the people who have paid for the entire program. However, I do want to give you just a tiny little taster and a little piece of it because I think that there are some real nuggets of stuff that you need to hear. And I'm sure I've probably shared this type of information on podcasts where I've been a guest. So I think that it is going to help sum up, explain, help with the times where you might stumble upon these kind of things yourself. And I see it time and time again with the people that I've worked with one-to-one in the past. So let's get into it. No more rambling, Savannah. So we started the session with we started week one, shall I say, with the vocal foundations, which is the first element of the voice framework, which is my signature framework that I coach people through if you work with me. And the thing about vocal foundations is that all the speaking programs that I have done, because although my background is in performing arts and I coach young people in public speaking, I wanted to improve my own public speaking, learning from other people as well, because just because you're good at something and you can coach it to other people doesn't mean you haven't got room for improvement, right? So I've done quite a few different speaker programs, online ones, person ones, self-study ones over the years. But I feel like every single one I've done has really skipped the bit about your actual voice, like the technical elements. And I think that's predominantly because a lot of the time when you speak on stage, you'll have a microphone. So you could just be speaking in an ordinary voice. When you're on a podcast, you have a microphone. When you go on to a live, you might be using, it's really popular at the moment to have one of those sort of handheld mics where you're holding it up to your face and it's Bluetooth connected to your phone, things like that. And so other speaker programs will really focus on how to craft your message, how to structure your talk, how to actually present, and how to even sell from the stage. And we cover all of that inside the Voice Collective too. But what they tend to miss out is where your voice actually comes from in the first place, the physicality of it, how it sits in your body. And I just think that that is the complete foundation of where everything stems from. And I appreciate maybe people don't have that knowledge or they don't have time to cover it in the program. But I feel like I covered a really good amount of it in sort of 45 to 60 minutes of that first session. Particularly what we're going to look at today is what happens when you're nervous. Our sympathetic nervous system, that gets activated. So in layman's terms, I'm sure we've all heard of the fight, flight or freeze. We've also got fawn. You might have even heard of flop as well, but we're going to predominantly just focus on fight and flight. There is also a nerve called the vagus nerve that runs really close to your larynx. So your larynx is your voice box where your vocal folds live. They vibrate together to produce sound. And the vagus nerve is highly reactive to perceived threat. That all dates back to, I was going to say prehistoric times. Don't know if that's quite correct, but think, being chased by a bear vibes in caveman times, that sort of thing. And when that perceived threat, nervous system reaction happens, that tension travels directly into your vocal folds and they tighten up. And the exact same time, your breath support starts to go as well. You might notice that you're breathing a bit more shallowly up in your chest. So if you're watching, I've just got my hands just underneath my collarbone. And when we breathe shallowly, our shoulders tend to rise up and down and our chest rises right at the top. And what we want to be focusing on is belly breathing with our diaphragm. So we call that diaphragmatic breathing because your voice needs power and stability to perform, present, be interviewed, go live, whatever platform you're showing up on at that time. So when those muscles around your larynx are working against you, against your breath, instead of with it, your voice can actually go a bit higher and you might be talking in a slightly higher register, a little bit more high pitched than usual. It might sound a little bit thinner, which I find quite difficult to demonstrate. But it's kind of like a bit more like breathy is one way. Could be letting a little bit more air out than you usually would. Or your voice might physically feel like it's shaking. So again, I can't really demonstrate that, but it's kind of like it's got a little bit of a sort of shake going on to it. But it's quite difficult to show when you're not feeling the actual feels at that time. And so the thing that I would love you to take away from this episode is that if you've ever felt like your voice went a bit wobbly or a bit high pitched or a bit thin, felt like it wasn't really yours, didn't really belong to you, like, what is this sound? And of course, we all sound slightly different in our heads to what everybody else hears. I'm sure lots of you can relate to feeling like when you hear yourself back, it can be a little bit cringeworthy. And fun fact, once I edit a podcast, I never ever listen to it again. Once it goes out live on Reclaim Your Voice, I never ever listen to them back. And when I go out on a podcast, I never listen to them. Partly because I'm just like, I can't change it. I've said it. And now it's out there live for the world to hear. And, what's the point in listening to it? It's just usually instead of an opportunity to give myself a pat on the back, it's usually an opportunity to potentially give myself a little bit of a hard time. So I don't bother. I think it's there for other people to enjoy, not for me to criticize myself. And it's not there for me to enjoy either. And that's my personal opinion on the matter. Anyway, what was I saying? So I'm sure we can all relate to maybe not liking the sound of our own voice and, the feeling when your voice goes a little bit wobbly or like you can't catch your breath when you're trying to say something to somebody. I actually had that a couple of weeks ago when I was having a conversation with a parent of a student at my theatre school, and I felt a little bit unsafe actually with them because I thought they were going to be very angry about what I was about to say. And although I was really confident in what I was saying and I trusted what I was saying and I knew that I had a really good point to make, I felt a little bit unsafe in their presence. I didn't feel that they were going to hurt me or anything like that, just caveat that. But it just wasn't a very nice situation and I felt my voice catching a little bit. So I just did my quick anchoring exercise and a quick peripheral vision whilst I was talking to them. And I felt much better. I had to dig deep into my own toolkit. Anyway, again, what was I saying? So you might have some limiting beliefs or some negative self-talk that crops up for you in that moment because A, your voice might have gone wobbly. B, it might have thinned out a bit. C, it might have gone a bit high pitched and you feel like it might have damaged your credibility, made you sound like you don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you felt like you sounded a bit silly or dithery or a bit scatty. These are all things that I get people telling me all the time that they feel when they might be doing their presentation or whatever it is. And it's all about worrying about what other people are thinking of you at that time. But that is not what is happening. It's not that you're scatty or dithery or, don't know what you're talking about. It's not a reflection of your knowledge or your competence. Your body's just doing exactly what it's designed to do when it perceives a threat. So you know your craft, you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about. Your body is just having a different reaction underneath. So I think that reframe alone really helps and changes a lot of things because so many of us walk away from like a nervy moment, don't we? Building a story about ourselves that we're not cut out for this or we're not good enough when actually it's just physiology, nothing to do with you, your ability or your character. So what do you do with that? So the starting point is always the same. Everything begins on the inside, not the outside. So before you try to fix how you sound, you just need to regulate your nervous system underneath it. So that belly breathing is done properly, using your diaphragm, not holding your stomach tight in a way that perhaps you may have been trained to, or you've had any sort of body image issues or anything like that, feeling that you've got any sort of body differences. You might be sort of just a bit conditioned to feeling like you need to hold your tummy in. No one ever needs to do that. Your body is beautiful. So we just want to let it go, relax and expand. And from there are some specific techniques for waking up and strengthening the voice itself and separate techniques for anchoring your body so it's stable under pressure. So I'm not going to walk you through the entire sequence here. That's actually something that is much better to do live so I can actually see and hear what's happening and then I can give you feedback for you to adjust it. But I just want you to just have that little takeaway of what's behind it. So if you're strengthening your instrument all the time, which is your voice, and you are regulating your nervous system at the same time, you then take away that need to perform and you can just be in a completely different realm. Yes, you don't need to perform in a completely different voice register to what you normally speak in. And I've actually had clients in the past who have been doing things like this, where they've been talking in a completely different register to their normal speaking voice. And they've actually begun to have a few literal voice problems because we're not designed to speak in a different register to our natural one for a really long, sustained period of time. Of course, it's absolutely fine to do it every now and again, but that is when problems really start. And I think I've talked a lot on this podcast and various other places, my social media, other podcasts I've been on, about how people really push through and just, in inverted commas, if you're not watching, push through and get on with it. And I just am not about that at all. I just don't want people just to be pushing through, just to get on with it, just to get going. Just all of those horrible things that you just don't need to be doing, because otherwise we could actually hurt ourselves. And we just don't want to have any issues with our voice, right? If there is one thing to take away from this today, it's this, that the wobble, the higher pitch, the breathlessness, none of that is you being unprepared or not good enough. It's just your vagus nerve doing its job a little too well. And once you know that, you can work with your body instead of against it. So if this has really resonated with you and you want to go a little bit deeper, I am offering you a 20-minute clarity call. The link is in the show notes. And I also will be bringing out a brand new resource very soon. So keep your eyes out for that. That will be in the show notes as well. But either way, I would absolutely love to help you figure out what's next for you and your next move. But thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Reclaim Your Voice. Keep showing up, keep grounded, and keep doing the things that light you up. And I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to this episode of Reclaim Your Voice. If today's conversation resonated, head to the show notes where you'll find my free audio gifts. And if this episode helped you in any way, it would mean so much if you shared it, rated or reviewed the show. That support helps these conversations reach the people who really need them. You can can also watch the full episode over on our YouTube channel, and we'll see you in the next one.